5, episode 19 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers. I'm John Politskin, alongside Sam Fetterman, as always, over there. And despite Sam's strong resistance, Kevin Fielder has joined us once again.
You can't escape me. You cannot escape me.
So we go from previewing Kansas State with reporter Kevin to previewing FAU with reporter/fan.
Yes, that's probably the best way. And alum. I paid a lot of money to attend school there for 4 years.
That is true. You can't leave out that part. But Kevin, I'll let you kind of decide where we start here with FAU, because this is a team that obviously has a new coach. They lost pretty much everyone of relevance on their roster to either graduation, bigger schools.
Yes, at Trey Carroll.
It is a new FAU.
Respect Trey Carroll. I just want to say respect
That's
Trey Carroll.
true. That is true. It is a new era of FAU basketball, though. And I think the honorary start here is that FAU entering this new era of basketball is, even with all their losses, even with the coach leaving, they are in a much better position as a program than they were, say, 3 years ago. Yeah,
so I'm going to say this before we start the episode. I'm not going to talk about last year's roster because there's nothing to talk about in regards to this year's team. There is nothing that we can take from last year's roster that carries over to this year except for Trey Carroll. And so for me, it's it is incredibly pointless, I think, to talk anything about what happened last year.
Practice with them.
Yeah, Devin Vanderpool and Jaquel Powell, neither of them played. So, I think it is incredibly pointless to talk about last year's basketball roster. In terms of what they did.
I do too, so stop talking about it.
Well, we won't. But in terms of new era, man, they went out and they got a really good coach. They went out and they got a really good coach that I didn't think that they would be able to get. So if you guys don't think FAU is here to stay as a potential player in men's college basketball, you're just wrong at this point.
Yeah, I wanna get into that. It's not just they got in a great head coach in John Jacobs, but this coaching staff,
great coaching staff too. Yes,
you bring back Todd Abernathy. A lot of people thought he was in line to maybe be the head coach after Dusty May left, but he decides that he's not going to follow Dusty May to Michigan. He's instead going to stay on staff at FAU. And then Jordan Fee, who, he might be coach in waiting at Nova Southeastern, but he also might just be too good to be coach in waiting at Nova Southeastern. He took Gannon from 3 wins to 30 wins last year.
And supposedly passed up a mid-major coaching job to come be an assistant coach at FAU. So coaching staff-wise, this is a really good coaching staff for FAU.
Yeah, I think one of the best mid-major coaching staffs in the country.
I think that is a very valid way to say it. In terms of Jordan Fee is a guy who's learned under some of the best coaches. He learned under Crutchfield at Nova and runs a lot of the same stuff. And,
it's not just, and I forgot to mention Aditya Malhotra, who was in the NBA and was at Baylor.
Isaiah Austin was a really good college basketball player, guys. I think we forget that.
He was so good. It's such a shame. It's such a shame that his eyesight was not going to let him play in the NBA. He was going to be a big man for a decade.
Yeah, and so now he's using that experience to go coach big men at FAU. There's so much to like about this coaching staff, and I think that's why if there was any reason to be excited about what FAU is in 2024, it's that the coaching staff is going to make up for maybe some of the issues on the roster.
So I think when talking about FAU is, yeah, sure, they're going to take a step back from what they've been, obviously. But at the same time, I don't know if they'll make the tournament. I don't even know if they'll be in the top tier in the American Conference. But I think you do have to say, and you do have to admit, that the talent on this roster is still very good for the American, and they can compete in that conference at a high level. They can make the tournament. It just depends on how the pieces fit together and what kind of injury luck they have.
Yeah, this is a roster that is good enough to win the American. Is it going to win the American? That's a different conversation. The American's a very weird basketball conference, but a very talented one. And so, I don't know if they're going to win it, but I don't know if they even have to win it. I think that they can be an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. Are they going to be is a completely different conversation, but I think that they can be. And they've built a roster that is capable enough of being an at-large bid contender, right? Like being on the bubble come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I think any roster, any team that I have in my top 100 that isn't in like a strictly like mid-major, like bad mid-major league, I think can get a not auto, but excuse me, at large bid. Just because like, I mean, FAU will play enough quality games where it's like, okay, they can win some of these, and even if they have a slip up or two, they might be all right.
Yeah, like their schedule, and we'll talk about that in depth a little bit later, I assume. But like their schedule is good enough to where they can have enough quality wins still to. It's not as good as last year's schedule, right? Like last year's schedule, they just stacked up with a whole bunch of really good games, and that's what carried.
Really good.
Yeah, like that's what carried them into making the NCAA tournament. It's not that good, but it's still good enough to be an at-large resume for a team like FAU.
So I'll start here with going into the roster. Kevin, this is a roster of a lot of new players playing together for the first time, including the guys that were coming off the bench last year and are coming back. Who is this team's best player? Who is this team's most important player?
I'm going to go most important player first, I think, is Baba Miller. Because I think that he fits. He's a very good fit for what John Jacobs wants to do in terms of defense and offense. And he's going to fit really well in the team. But if he does not play well, the only guys behind him are Lithuanian prospects who have never played college basketball before. And
you're not even going to try on the names?
No, because I tried it. I tried it on an FAU podcast and it didn't go well. It won't go here well.
Matas and Montas. Let's
yes,
go
Matas and Montas is like the best way to explain who they are. But like, they are both unproven commodities. They're both highly regarded who played with the Lithuanian youth national teams, right? And so there's talent there, but neither of them have played college basketball. And if Baba Miller is not at least reliable, this roster is going to have a hard time being competitive. In terms of best player, Sam has heard me made the point that I think Baba Miller might also be the best player. But to make this fun, I will go with a new guy because it's no fun to just say the same guy twice, right? I think it's Leland Walker, the Eastern Kentucky transfer. He did not score the most out of any of these transfers last year. I think that was Kiki Tandy. But like, he's a very good point guard. He's a very reliable point guard. He's a guy who scored well at the mid-major level. They're going to need him to be good to be competitive in the American. And I think that like from that perspective, that's why this roster is so exciting is because they went out and they got proven guys. They didn't go out and get a whole bunch of like FBS or high major drop downs who didn't play much. They went out and they got a few of those guys, but they didn't fill their roster with those guys. And I think that's going to help them a lot because the learning curve is having these guys learn how to play together, not learn how to play college basketball at a high level.
I like Leland Walker a lot. I also would agree that he's this team's best player. I think you could go a bunch of different ways. There's a lot of really talented.
There's so much talent on that roster
on this team, but Leland Walker was one of the best players. Kozart was probably the best, but the second best player on a team that finished first in the A-Sun last year. I know they got booted out of that tournament early, but I like what Leland Walker does. He's a really good playmaker. He can score. He can shoot when he's open. He can really create off the dribble. Just a talented guy, can get in the lane. He's only 6'1", 6'2", but he plays with an edge to him.
Yeah. Also, JP, the reason why my light is so bright, I don't know if you're actually listening to this, is because I got too lazy to change it. And it's probably not really good to go change it mid-episode, even though it's right here. But this is a roster that is intriguing. And there's a lot of ways that this roster can go when the season actually starts. But I think there are a lot of situations where this roster is among the best in the American and competing for postseason play, whether that is the NIT or the NCAA tournament. And for a team that up until the last 2 years has not had that level of success, sure, right? Like, I don't think there's an FAU fan who will be pissed off if they are on the bubble but don't make the NCAA tournament. At least I don't think there is one that should be pissed off if that's the situation.
What do we think about Nicola Moretti for this team? Because he was when Illinois got him, when Illinois got him, their fans were really excited about him. The staff was really excited about him. But what ended up happening was he got a little bit of run, played in 18 games, but they were good enough at the point with Damask and with Terrence Shannon that they just really didn't need to play him. What do you think of his fit on this roster?
A very interesting fit because they maybe don't need him to be the point guard or the backup point guard because I think they have a few guys who can play backup point guard as well.
Great.
But like he's a guy who is a very high upside basketball player, and they have a few of the international guys who are going to be high upside players. Him included. You have Max Langenfeld, who is a very highly regarded German prospect who played for a youth team over there. Like there is a lot of talent on that team, and so like maybe Nicola Moretti does not need to be the backup point guard, but there is absolutely a situation where I think he is a very quality rotational player for FAU. And I know the coaching staff is incredibly excited about how he can develop. So I wouldn't be shocked if he was the backup point guard and could be a very good playmaker and a very good fit for what FAU needs off the bench.
Sam, anything to add to that?
I don't really know much about Nico Moretti because the guy didn't play very much at all, but I know you were right about there were people excited about him. And if there were people excited about him, there's probably a reason why. He should be a really solid backup guard. But Kevin, I want to expand on your point that there's multiple guys that can be a backup point guard type guy. Kiki Tandy can handle the ball. Ken Evans can handle the ball. They don't need Nico Moretti to be a 10 minute a game guy. He could just be a 5 to 7 minute a game guy if that's all he's ready for, because I think they can get ball handling out of their other two guards.
Yeah, and like that's the biggest thing is that like they're not in a position where guys like Nicola Moretti need to be ready to be reliable players this year. If they develop into reliable players, that only helps them develop. That only helps.
Get 2 years of Leland Walker.
Yeah, like there is. I mean, if he's not transferring to a high major after this year, right? Mm-hmm. So, but like this is a roster that is incredibly versatile. That's incredibly deep. I think the thing that they're lacking is probably like they're lacking the same production that they got at last year from John L. Davis and Elijah Martin. They don't have a guy that's that good. They may not need a guy that's that good, but they don't have
mid-major team doesn't have an All-American. Breaking news.
Well, they don't have a guy who is like even in the same stratosphere of those guys, right? Like Leland Walker is a good basketball player. Tandy's a really good basketball player. Ken Evans is a really good basketball player. None of them are going to be able to lead the team as good as those three that John L. Davis and Elijah Martin did. Now, I will just say, like, they don't need a guy to be that good. And most mid-majors don't have a guy who's that good, let alone two. So, like, to be concerned about
Golden was that good.
Golden too. Like, to be concerned about them not having a guy that's that good is, like, probably picking at straws.
World problems.
Yeah, that's a very first world problems thing, especially for a school like FAU.
I like this, and I want to get into Tandy a little bit. It took him a while to get going. He was at Xavier. It didn't really work out there, but Xavier, but at Jacksonville State last year, he just turned into a guy that can score wherever you need him to. He was really good getting in the paint. He was really good as an outside shooter, just tremendous from beyond the arc, and he can handle the ball. He wasn't asked to pass very much at Jacksonville State because he was just that good of a shooter.
He was that good.
But I think there was a reason he was getting a CUSA Player of the Year shouts at times last year.
Yeah. This is a guy who, like, I know the coaching staff is incredibly excited about because they think he has high major, like, talent. Yeah, and I think he just needs a place to figure it out. And he figured it out at Jacksonville State. Now he's going to be asked to figure it out at a higher level. And I think he is absolutely capable of figuring it out at a higher level and being a productive scorer at the American level.
Yeah. So my thing, if you want to simplify the FAU roster, is you have a couple guys that are transfers up that were just way too good for the league they were playing in.
Yes.
You have a couple guys that were transfers down that had like legit talent coming out of high school or coming out of the international waters, and now are at FAU where they really maybe their talent is just also too good for that league. And then you have Trey Carroll, a guy who played 16 games his freshman year, a guy who played 24 games his sophomore year. Numbers were like efficiency numbers were really good. They just didn't have a spot for him. And now he's going to get his chance. Kevin, what do other people that follow college basketball need to know about Trey Carroll?
Yeah, so first of all, Trey Carroll is a vibes guy in every sense of the word. He is going to be the vibes leader of this team. And I know there's like no way to quantify being the vibes leader of a college basketball team, but that's also a very important job for anyone. Now on the court, this was a guy who was asked to play some meaningful minutes last year when Giancarlo Rosado went down with an injury and could not play in their MTE, and he played well in those games. They asked him to play the 5 there. I think he's probably more of a 4, but he's an efficient player who's grown every year since being at FAU, and this feels like the year where he can put it all together and be a good basketball player at the American level. And so, is he going to be the highlight name of this offseason for FAU? Absolutely not. FAU fans love him. I love him, and like respect Trey Carroll at all costs. But there are going to be guys who steal the headlines. Trey Carroll is going to be the guy who is the glue guy for this roster.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think another glue guy on this roster is Caleb Glenn, athletic piece that can do some damage physically as a 3/4 hybrid. Not the greatest outside threat, but another glue guy type. Not a great scorer, but will do the little things.
So he's a guy who I went back and I watched some of his games from Louisville, and man, no one should subject themselves to having to watch Louisville basketball the last few years. That was some of the worst basketball I've ever watched. I was in the trenches.
You brought it on yourself.
You're telling me that taking L. Ellis and Jalen Withers didn't work.
So he's a guy who didn't play a lot at Louisville, but when he played, it was strangely productive at times. Like,
no wonder he didn't play much because he was actually good.
Yes, like it felt like he should have been playing more. And like, I don't.
What are you saving him for? The first round of the ACC tournament when you're down.
Can't knock the losing team guy when he didn't play for the losing team.
Like
exactly.
The production was there. Like he had a game against Georgia Tech in conference play that was like good. Like it was a good basketball game. Now Georgia Tech again was not a very good basketball team, but that was a good basketball game by Caleb Glenn against a high major team. That's the best way to explain what Georgia Tech is. They are a high major basketball team.
They had some legit talents last year.
And so like that's a guy who like, man, you give him an entire season at the American level, we may be talking about him a little bit more next offseason, whether that's at FAU or at another high major. There is a lot of talent to work with there. A former top 100 recruit who is like trying to still find his way, but this is a guy who's 1 year removed from being a very highly sought after high school recruit.
Is it at all a red flag that a very highly sought after high school recruit committed to play for Kenny Payne?
No, because Kenny Payne did some dark magic with that roster.
After seeing what happened the first year that he didn't decommit, is that at all like a red flag to you? Or
no, I think Kenny Payne.
I don't think it's a red flag, but
I think Kenny Payne was doing
like,
something.
It's just something that came to mind.
There was a legitimate belief that roster would be like significantly better.
Yeah, like there were people talking about that roster being not good, but
and then
like
we watched Dennis Evans play in that
improved.
exhibition game, and
we went, nope, never mind, we lied. So I don't know if it's I don't think it's a red flag. I know what you're like.
They doubled their win total.
I don't really like.
How many other teams in college basketball?
What did they go from 1 to 2?
4 to 8.
Oh, scary. No, but like I think coaches are very excited for what Caleb Glenn can be because that's a top 100 talent who's playing at FAU and a legitimate top 100 talent playing at FAU.
So this roster has 5, by my count, freshmen and a redshirt freshman. In addition to that, somehow between the 5 freshmen on this roster, and I get that some of these guys are international players, I have not stumbled in my watching of the 2024 class, I have not stumbled upon any of these players. So, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to tell me what you know about this freshman class for FAU, who's a long-term project, who can impact right away, and just really like who we should know for this season, and then who we need to know down the line.
Are we talking about all the international guys? Because I think there was that was their entire freshman class, right? It was just international guys.
All the freshmen.
All the freshmen. So Matas is a guy who I think will play immediately for FAU. He's a guy who played meaningful minutes at the in like the Lithuanian second division for the best team in Lithuania and their B team. Played minutes for the youth national team, played well in those minutes. Still growing as a basketball player, but there is a lot to like about his game, and coaches are excited about how that transitions. Then I have the roster up here. I apologize. Montas, I don't think he's ready to play for FAU year one, but he is a guy who, if he continues to grow both vertically and on the basketball court, can be a very disruptive center at this level. And he is, I think, above 7 foot at this point, and it may take a year of him adjusting to playing at the college basketball level, but there's a lot to like there. Then you have Max Lengenfeld, who was highly regarded coming out of Germany, had offers to Marquette, and I think there was like some talk that he had committed to Marquette at some point, but he is a player who should be able to play to some degree immediately as a rotational player. They may not need him to play immediately as a rotational player, but there is reason to believe he can be a rotational player year one for FAU. And if that's the case, amazing, because I think he's a very effective shooter who that may be his role early on, is just being like a designated shooter, but reason to believe he can be that for FAU. And then we have, let me get the name up. Amar, I think it's Amar Anku Diop. He comes from NBA Africa. There's not much available on him. I'm just going to be honest. There's
not much available on the projected top 5 pick that's an NBA.
Yes, and this guy is not the projected top 5 pick. But from what I can glean, he is incredibly athletic, incredibly lengthy, and I think they're taking a chance on those things translating with probably a year, maybe 2 for a guy like him, just because I don't think he's ready for college basketball whatsoever. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a lot to like about him, but there's just not much to get because there's not much data available from NBA Africa.
There's not much data available from really a lot of these international guys, unless you're willing to, unless you know these languages and can read articles in other languages.
Well,
and search YouTube for games in other languages.
So I found, this is the funniest thing, Sam. I sent you this when it happened. When they got Matas, the Lithuanian, I found like 10 of their full games streamed on YouTube. And so I was watching him play like actual basketball games. And so I guess like I should probably expand on him a little bit more because I actually watched him play. Very good in the post. Very good in the post.
Wait. Matas or Montas?
Montas. No, Matas. Matas, the 7-footer sophomore. It's a very confusing thing that I'm only going to get confused about more as the season progresses. I can't wait. But like, he is a very solid player. And I think that there is good reason to believe that he can be a year one contributor for FAU as a rotational big man. That probably means less than 10 minutes a game, but they only probably need him to play 7 minutes a game.
Has FAU released the full schedule yet?
FAU, I do not think has released their full schedule.
Okay, I know they're in the Charleston Classic.
Yes, they are.
Good tournament. They got some real opportunities here, no matter if they lose that first one or win the first one.
Yes, they have not released their full non-conference schedule.
Yeah, but FAU will open the Charleston Classic on Thursday, November 21st, Oklahoma State. 2 teams that I literally have ranked like 1 or 2 spots apart. Literally 1 spot apart in my top 100. So Great contest according to the Jonathan Woodskin Top 100. And then you got Miami, Drake. They'll play either the winner or loser of that one. On the other side of the bracket, Seton Hall, VCU, Vanderbilt, Nevada, all teams that made my top 100. So they got some real games to get out of here with 1 or 2 wins, maybe even 3. They're playing really good basketball.
Yeah, I really like their MTE. In terms of building a resume for the NCAA tournament, which is why you play these games, they have a very good resume building opportunity. I will also mention, it has not been announced by FAU, obviously. They're also playing Indiana State in the, the Athletes in Action something rather or other.
Indiana State that's not a marquee game.
Not a very marquee game, but still, they're not going to be awful. They won't be awful.
They're a year late.
Yeah, they are a year late and catching the Indiana State vibes.
Last year.
Other games that they play, since I have it up, credit FAU Owl's Nest for keeping an ongoing list. They play UCF on the road. So whatever we think of UCF.
Yeah, it's best that we don't get into that.
I can promise you who I'll be rooting for in that game.
UCF is a roster that I don't know if you guys are doing UCF preview. Man,
we are not.
That's a roster.
It's certainly one of the rosters of all time.
Who else do they place? Then they have. They also have. Sorry, this is a great content.
Do they play in the Field of 68 Classic, or am I like? Was that last year?
I thought they played in it. Yes, they do play in the Field of 68 Classic, where they will play Liberty and Charleston. So
same field as last year.
Yes, it is just the same field as last year. I think Charleston will probably be good, right? Like
good. Liberty should be okay.
They will also play FGCU in Jacksonville. So
in Jacksonville.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said FGCU in Jacksonville.
No, FGCU, and they will also play Jacksonville.
That would be a choice.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, they're doing a neutral site game with, of all teams, Florida Gulf Coast.
This is a good schedule for them, though.
Yes, very good schedule in terms of building a resume. And I think that there are games that they will be competitive in, which is the most important thing, right? Like, they're not scheduling Duke hoping to try and beat Duke. They're scheduling high major programs that they have a chance of beating. Mm-hmm. And that is the most important thing, I think, for them, is scheduling the games that they can actually win or have a chance of winning.
And even being in the Charleston and the Field of 68 Classic, like, there are mid-major teams in both of those that are good. Like, it's not like you're going 0-2 and playing some 250 ranked team in the third game.
Yes, there will be plenty of opportunities to get meaningful wins in those games. And when we look at like what it took last year for them to be a bubble team, which I don't think they were on the bubble as much as people want to say they were on the bubble at the end of the year, but they have the schedule to be good enough if they win some of those games and are good in the American to be firmly an at-large bid. I don't think that's what happens. I think they're probably just on the bubble, and it can go either way depending on how the end of the season goes. But they have a very promising chance to be an NCAA tournament team again this year.
Sam, Kevin, you guys got anything to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin's mentioned it a bunch. FAU's not going anywhere. Like, they're not going to be as nationally prominent as they were the last 2 years. But they're not going anywhere. This is a basketball program that is now it's legit. It's a thing. Like, FAU basketball, it's a thing now. You go in Boca Raton, people are like, oh, you going to the FAU basketball game tonight? Yeah, I'm going to the FAU basketball game tonight. Now, I don't know if that's true. I've only been to Boca Raton a couple times, but I would assume.
I feel like we could have asked the guy.
Heard their arena is terrible, according to some.
Oh, the arena, let's be clear. As someone who has been in that arena plenty of times, it is not a mid-major basketball arena.
Back to my point, like, FAU basketball, it's a thing now. It's a thing in Boca. It's a thing that people care about, and they are going to be a good basketball team, a good mid-major basketball program for a long time. I know John Jacobs has this whole thing. It's like, don't even pick us up and call us if you're not going to call us a high major program. Like, shut up, dude.
I mean, I think you got to market yourself like that. Like, that's how you got to market yourself.
I get it, but like, shut up.
I mean, I don't think he's
serious. You're not a high major. I don't care. You're Florida Atlantic.
Respect Florida Atlantic, but no, like, Sam is 100%.
I think that this is a program that people are going to have to keep paying attention to, even if they don't think they have to.
The thing I think that is most impressive about FAU is for a university that is as young and as relatively small nationally as FAU is, they have solid NIL base, right? Like there's a reason why they got the guys that they got through the transfer portal. And it was not just because John Jacobs and Jordan Fee are like really good at their jobs, which they are. But they also got them because they have the NIL budget to compete with some of these other group of 5 schools, a group of 5 mid-majors rather. But like, are they going to compete NIL wise with Memphis and their FedEx fund? No. Like, let's be clear. They're not competing with Memphis NIL wise, but they have NIL
I'm
money.
sure they need to.
They don't. If Penny Hardaway's there, they don't need to do anything to be competitive with them. I hope every Memphis fan is watching this as I said that. But they don't need to be that good or that deep NIL wise, but they have NIL support. They have monetary support. This is a program who's going to be incredibly competitive in the mid-major sphere for years. And whether that's with John Jacobs or someone else because John Jacobs leaves, like this is going to be a team that you have to remember exists, which for what FAU has been historically, that's good enough, man.
Yeah,
that's still good enough.
If you're a mid-major program that people know about, like that's you're already winning 80% of the battle.
Yes.
I remember last summer I know it was coming off of Final Four, but we saw Dusty May was at Peach Jam. Like, not many mid-major coaches are just posting up at Peach Jam to try to get kids. Like, usually those kind of kids are too good for them. But he was doing it, and the way FAU is branding themselves right now, I think they'll be able to continue to get that kind of talent.
Absolutely. This is not going to be an issue of talent acquisition for FAU at the mid-major level. And I don't think they're ever going to solidify themselves as like consistently in the NCAA tournament every year, right? Like that is an incredibly difficult thing to do as a mid-major because roster turnover is at an all-time high. But they're consistently going to be in the mix for that. And that is half of the battle for mid-major programs, right? Is keeping yourselves relevant so that you can acquire the potential high major talent that wants the chance to play immediately.
Red, blue,
FAU. Red.
I got
blue,
you doing it now.
FAU.
All right,
Sam's not doing
let's take us home.
If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about Lithuanian pirated YouTube stream,
they were official. They were official Lithuanian.
You came to the right place. If you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This is season 5, episode 19 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers, our FAU preview with Kevin Fielder. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back hopefully later this week with some more preview action for you, all ahead of our big time conference preview jamboree, which is just about a month and 10 days away.